Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. Together, we explore topics of interest to in-house lawyers. We cover career, practice tips, leadership, the future of law, mental health, legal tech, and much, much more. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They're an act of courage. Want to get the most from this conversation? Ask questions, comment, like, follow, say hello. In short, engage. Finally, have fun. In-house legal practice is a serious business, but you don't have to take yourself seriously. Let's begin. Here's your host, Olga Mack.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Notes to My Legal Self. We are continuing our special series to celebrate our new American Bar Association book, Visual Literacy for Lawyers. As you may know, we are very excited about this book. We love it. We like the cover. We really love the content. And we absolutely love all the folks who have contributed various case studies and examples that are publicly available on visualiqforlawyers.com. So yes, check out the book, order it from the ABA or Amazon, wherever the books are sold, and go to visualiqforlawyers.com and check out free companion guide right now so you can get inspired, see examples from folks who have been innovating not for a year or two, not even a decade, but multiple decades, a lot of good examples. And so today's topic is near and dear to our hearts, human-centered design in legal education. For generations, law schools taught us that rigorous lawyering means analyzing dense text, complex precedent, and preparing for courtroom. And absolutely, there is some of that, but that's not where it ends. That's where it starts. But as market changes, we are seeing that true rigor means so much more than being courtroom ready. Creating legal work that people can actually understand and use and impact their daily lives and actually improve it is a worthy goal to pursue. So in my work driving digital transformation and legal tech, we talk a lot about tools and systems. But technology alone doesn't solve problems. Guess what? We as humans, lawyers, and as human practitioners that may or may not have law degree, but may have an opinion about how law is actually consumed and delivered, we are the ones who have an ability to impact it. And when we combine academic rigor with user design, with completely it was a good intention, we can unlock what modern lawyering and legal experiences can be. So that's why we're so eager and excited about today. I'm so thrilled to welcome a global pioneer in legal design, Professor Michael Doherty. Michael is a professor of legal design at the University of Lancaster and founding editor-in-chief of the Legal Design Journal. But first, let's also welcome my co-host, Tessa, a co-author of this very book, and a woman who makes sure that all of this happens and we all stay on track and everything comes together, who've been absolute force to collaborate with. So without further ado, welcome Tessa and Michael to Notes to My Legal Self. I'm really excited about today's conversation.
Hey, thank you, Olga, and so great to have Michael with us today. I'm so excited about this conversation because very often when lawyers hear visuals or legal design, lawyers tend to think, oh, this is about making my document look nice, or maybe making my website look better, or having a better logo. Well, that's a lot deeper than that, and that's what we're going to unfold today. It's truly about empathy. It's truly about understanding your client's needs and being able to communicate clearly and delivering the service in a way that resonates better with the audience. For those who don't know me, just a few words about me. I'm Tessa Manuello, founder and CEO of Legal Creatives. And I've been deeply involved in this journey of upskilling myself and others in the visualization part, the legal design thinking part. And this is why I'm so excited about today's episode. So without further ado, Michael, welcome to the show. So happy to have you with us. Would you like to share a few words about yourself, your background, and thank you once again for being on the show with us?
Well, certainly, and first of all, thanks for the invitation to join you, and I'm looking forward to this conversation too. A little bit about myself. So I've been a full-time academic and law teacher since 1993. Most of that in the northwest of England. I spent 25 years or so at, I'm trying to think of what the equivalent would be, maybe a state university in the States, one with a strong emphasis on teaching and serving the educational needs of the area. 7 years ago, I moved to Lancaster University, which is a research-intensive university. It's regarded on various metrics as one of the top 10 or 12 or 15 of the institutions in the country. Most of my career I've researched and taught in fields such as human rights and constitutional law and environmental law. In the last 20 years, much of my time and energy has been on educational leadership and development. And around about 9 or 10 years ago, by a happy accident, I discovered that there was this emerging thing called legal design, and that's really been my passion ever since.
So let's talk about that incident. What happened? How did you discover legal design? Folks who come to it randomly or out of the blue, I ask them what happened in your childhood. But it sounds like it didn't happen in childhood. It sounds like it happened in adulthood. But if something did happen, in fact, in childhood, I want to know what was that pivotal moment or realization that sparked your journey from traditional law professor to pioneering legal design?
Thanks. Well, I think the word I would use is serendipity, which is a lovely word, isn't it? But it was this notion of kind of a happy accident. So just briefly, the steps were, I've always been interested in educational development. We work in common law systems where lots of important law is derived from events involving real people and real places. And I wondered one day, about 15, 16 years ago, if there were any maps that noted those places of legal significance. And there weren't. So I created one, and it was a really nice little project, different ways of visualizing legal events, showing students that law is not abstract, it's not limited to law in books, that it can be law in life as well. And when I came to write about that project, I looked at various sources on visualizing legal data. And I read a very short piece in the Cornell University newsletter from Helena Hapio, who, as you know, is one of the founding figures of the entire field. And she referred to the work of the Graphic Advocacy Project in New York City, which brings together designers and community groups to create effective communications around things like rights, environmental rights, tenant rights. And I looked at one of those projects, which involved street vendors in New York City, and my mind just went bang. And I went, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do in my work and in my career. So I did it. And I found that visualization was kind of only one part of the picture. There was this big hinterland of design thinking. So that was the thing that kind of first opened the door. And I can carry on briefly and tell you a little bit how my career in legal design just kind of flowed on from there. Again, it was almost a series of happy accidents. For example, I was able to get to one event in the Netherlands in 2018 that put me in a room with a lot of the OGs, like Margaret Hagan and Helena Hapio. That meant when I applied to be a main stage speaker for the biggest event in our field, which is the Legal Design Summit in Helsinki. The following year, I wasn't a complete stranger. People knew, some of the people knew who I was. Then after speaking in front of 500 people at Helsinki City Hall that year, when I approached many of the leading legal designers in the world and said, hey, do you want to join a working group to design a legal design journal? again, I wasn't a complete unknown. So the ripples and connections kind of went on from that. And then one day you wake up and you're a professor of legal design.
The ripples and connections that paved the path to becoming a professor. I love that.
Yeah, such a beautiful story. And I think it's so poetic in a way, right? That serendipity that you say. And I think many of us can relate to that. We are driven by it because, I don't know, I think there is something that it touches our heart somehow. And it's beautiful. We can make law beautiful and useful at the same time.
Tessa, you now speak my language, making law beautiful. I happen to think that beauty is a higher virtue than justice, and justice is probably one of the highest.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I'd love to know, Michael, about like that transition. So you were teaching constitutional law, environmental law. So and then you moved to legal design. I mean, it's quite a big move, especially that at the time legal design was not really known yet. I'm not sure if it's actually still known today. It's still pretty much an underdog. So yeah, I'd love to know how you brought that into your day-to-day work, and if there were any resistance, how did you overcome those resistance? Because I think this is something that many lawyers can relate to, right? We're trying to bring something new, whether it's legal design or something else, or even AI. And, there's a lot of resistance to changing old habits or changing topics. So what did you do to overcome that? And what would you recommend other lawyers to do to overcome resistance in such a risk-averse and traditional environment?
It's interesting. It's mostly been fine, to be honest with you. I think one important step is, I think for all of us who want to bring design into our field, I think it's so important to establish your credentials in your core area first. So if you're a contract lawyer who wants to bring in design, you need to be a really good contract lawyer to begin with. Same if you're a privacy lawyer, same if you're a legal educator. You need to be good in your core field before you can have the credentials really to bring in design practices into those fields. Just perhaps as an example of that, one of the first big projects I did, it was perhaps more education design than legal design. We were redesigning the year one curriculum of our law degree. And I worked with a team of colleagues in the law school I was at the time. I'd been the director of education in that law school for about 15 years. I'd worked with that team for ages on lots of different change projects. So when I said to them, I'd like us to approach this task in a completely different way from anything we've ever done before, and in a completely different way than anyone else in the sector has done before. I'm like, will you take that leap with me? They said yes, because the trust was there. The trust had been built up over a period of years. In general, in the, say, 8, 9, 10 years when I've been a legal designer in academia, my colleagues have actually loved it. They've been really fascinated by it. They like the visualization aspect of legal design. But the more kind of user experience research and empathy research and prototyping, they're often quite keen to integrate some of those elements into their own work and their own projects. Clearly, there are times when there is some resistance, and I've actually written a book chapter on some of the tensions in between legal cultures and design cultures. And design, as we know, has a certain vibe, certain language and methods, which are in tension with the norms of legal culture. So some of the language that we see in kind of service design, terms like a shitty first draft, or fail often, fail fast, or kind of using improv drama as part of prototyping, or terms like brainwriting, or ideation. I simply wouldn't use those terms in front of a legal audience, but we don't have to. On something like ideation and brainwriting, we can simply say, we've got lots of smart people in this room. and let's generate lots of ideas in relation to this challenge that we're facing. And rather than have the loudest voice holding the room, just bear with me whilst we do something different, and in silence we'll write one idea per post-it note for 5 minutes, and we'll see what comes out of it. What's likely to happen at the end of it, so people will come up to you and go, that was a really interesting way of working. And then you can tell them, oh, that was a design technique. And it's called brainwriting, but you don't have to advertise that at the start. And just to say a little bit more on this, clearly there are some cultural differences, and I work in academia, and lots of your audience don't. And UK legal education generally is quite progressive in terms of interdisciplinary approaches and innovations in pedagogy. Just to give a brief example of that, my estimate is that about 5 years ago, there were maybe 3 of us in the whole of UK academia who really identified legal designer as a prominent part of our title or our identity as scholars. And it's around about the same number now, so it doesn't feel as though there's been a lot of progress. But I was at the Association of Law Teachers conference at Easter time here in the UK. It's one of the key organizations. And one of the conference themes was legal design and design thinking in education. I was really interested by this. Looked at the program, and there were 2 or 3 of the sorts of names I would expect to see talking about legal design. But this was the striking thing. Paper after paper after paper that I went to over that 2.5 days from people who would never describe themselves as legal designers was talking about user experience research, about journey mapping, about user personas in a completely normal way. So there is this notion that what has happened is that some of these design influenced or design flavored approaches have pervaded the field an awful lot more. Just to finish on a challenge, it is still really hard to get legal design taken seriously as a core competence, and it's hard to get space in the curriculum. There's an awful lot of competition for that space. Artificial intelligence has kind of swamped the field. It's commanded so much time and energy that it's hard to get space to talk about this sort of activity. So I'm talking about the UK, but I think for all of us in legal design, I think we'd perhaps sum it up this way, that for mainstream law schools doing mainstream legal education, even if they're aware of legal design, they regard it quite positively, but as an interesting fringe activity. And we want to do so much more than that, of course.
Olga, you are mute. There you go.
We want to do so much. Yeah, can you hear me now?
We can.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? You can hear me now. Good. We want to be so much more than being a fringe activity. I love that. I was reflecting on this, Michael. I think, and I know Tessa kind of raised this point as well. Are we the mainstream yet? Are we there yet? Is this accepted? Is this thing where we serve people is a thing? Is that a thing yet? 10 years, 20, 30 years later, is it still a thing? Not a thing? How come it's not a thing? How come we are in the fringe? What seems like a really obvious thing. It's an interesting thing to reflect on. And it's always so interesting once you get sort of past initial resistance, the light bulbs start to go off, and you see enough of them around, and yet we're still on the fringe. I think it's really fascinating. What are some of the most exciting practical wins you have seen for both students and sort of real world legal delivery when design is placed, at the core? Because I fundamentally believe that you're n number of life-changing experiences away, moving from the fringe to mainstream. So I don't know where we are on that end. I think we're trending positive. I'd like this to happen in my lifetime.
I think we are trending positive. Yeah. And I could talk briefly about kind of some of my almost business work. So I was appointed 7 years ago to Lancaster, and 6 years of that I was associate head of the law school and the lead on education and student experience. And higher education is not often regarded this way, but it's a huge business. It's a really important economic sector, certainly here in the UK. It dwarfs industries like the fishing industry and the steel industry and lots of other industries put together. And certainly when I became a scholar, I thought I'd spend a lot more time reading philosophy texts, and not so much time in leadership group meetings talking about KPIs and USPs and return on investment. But that's part of being a business. And I was appointed to Lancaster because the law school had, frankly, a bit of an issue with student satisfaction, and that could have become a really big problem. So in the UK, we have a national survey of all students in higher education called the National Student Survey, and it's really important in relation to the reputation of the university and its league table place. And Lancaster, frankly, was sliding on that. So I was brought in to work with colleagues on turning that around. And I took a human-centered design approach to that task. So we used methods like service safari and focus groups. We used simplification of our education policies, plain language in our communication with students. And over the course of about 4 years, we became, I think this is a fair claim, that out of the research-intensive law schools in the UK, we became the best of those law schools in relation to student experience and student satisfaction. And this was like business critical for us because at Lancaster, it's a great university, but it's not an ancient university. It's not like an Ivy League equivalent. It's not in a big buzzing city that's going to draw lots of students. So we really stand and fall by our reputation. But that effect is not surprising. Like, all the data shows that companies that put design at the heart of their operations outperform the average. They outperform the average on things like the S&P 500. So this stuff works, and we just need to continue showing that it works, and we'll persuade people to put us a bit closer to the mainstream.
Wow, what an amazing story. Go ahead, Olga.
No, trending positive. I needed to hear that. I guess, do you think it will happen in your lifetime?
I mean, I think in the particular, there are all sorts of flavors of legal design and legal designers, and I'm primarily an education legal designer. And one of the outputs that I was involved with is a book called Transforming Higher Education Through Human-Centered Design, which I edited with a couple of colleagues. And it came out about 2 years ago. And that book is being used now in UK higher education to inform structural change projects across really big organizations. So it may not be going as quickly as we would like, but that step-by-step march towards the mainstream, I think, is happening.
Yeah, and I think, I'm taking a great lesson here, because it may not be happening for every single lawyer on this planet yet, but at least it's happening somehow, in our day-to-day work, career and life, and we're seeing the impact. And I think just, sharing those stories, like this story about the business perspective of, improving the user experience for students at Lancaster University. Actually, now that I remember, when in my childhood, I had a British friend, and I think he went to Lancaster University, but that was a long time ago. But it reminds me, like, everything is connected. That's serendipity again. And I think to give more ground to all of this, you have started with other practitioners and professors, academicians. You have started the Legal Design Journal some years ago. I think it was launched at the Legal Design Summit in Helsinki, maybe a few years after you gave that first speech. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what is this journal, what's the vision behind it, and how does it help bringing more credibility to legal design, whether it's the academic side or the practical aspect of it.
Thanks, Tessa. Yeah, I think it's really important because new disciplines need specialized places to publish their work, or you'll always be working in the margins of other people's disciplines. And working that way really affects the nature and quality of what you write and how you write it. In some respects, you're always going to have to be evangelical about your topic. If you're writing in other people's disciplines, you're always going to have to go, there is a thing called legal design, and it does exist, and it's fantastic. So you're always covering the basics again and again and again. I just think it's really important to have some place where you can write and converse, where you can assume that the readership already get that legal design is a thing, that it exists, that it has certain characteristics and certain goals. And what that does is it promotes dialogue, and to me it promotes kind of honest self-critique, that we're never going to mature as a field and a discipline unless we have the honesty to be critical of ourselves about where we could do better. So to me, it's an important pillar. There's lots of other streams of work that involved in developing the field, but this is a really important pillar in making sure that the field matures and it grows in visibility and confidence and sophistication. Just briefly, in terms of how it's structured, it was really important to us. So I worked with a working group of about 24, 25 legal designers, both academics and practitioners from all the way around the world. And we didn't just put this together, we designed the journal. We did our own user experience research on what people might want from the journal. We felt it had to be inclusive and reflect the diverse nature of the legal design movement. So it has an article section, which is for more scholarly work, which is produced mainly by academics, but not only. And it has a studio section, which has practical use cases. And we've published 2 volumes already, and we'll be publishing our 3rd volume later this year. And then we'll be ramping up and publishing far more frequently from 2027 onwards.
I love this. This is really interesting, and that scholarly foundation is so key, because often in innovation there is this big gap between theoretical research and what practicing lawyers is dealing, with on, I don't know, Friday morning, since it is Friday morning today. So how do you see that academic research in legal design directly feeding into the daily work of, let's just say the group I deeply care about, in-house teams and practitioners, because they are right there, frontliners, making our commercial economies go forward in a way that is sustainable, and improve human lives as opposed to otherwise, and hopefully in an ethical way, so we can rise as civilization to be better than the one that preceded us.
Well, it's quite a big challenge. Yeah. One of the things I really love about legal design as a field is that I think we have an unusually kind of close and fluid connection in between academia and practice. Just to pick out one example, Elena Hapios, someone I mentioned earlier, and Elena spent an awful lot of her career as an in-house lawyer in industrial commercial companies in Finland before she was one of the early formers of legal design. So she became a consultant. She's now a professor of practice. She's on the advisory board of the journal. And I think it's very much a two-way street. So I think there is such great perspectives and knowledge from practitioners and in particular from in-house lawyers, that we should be providing platforms to share that, and we do so as editor-in-chief, I probably shouldn't have favorites of the articles we publish, but the first volume of the Legal Design Journal, we had this really wonderful article from Laura Hartman, who's an in-house lawyer at a major Australian health organization. And this wasn't in the studio section. This wasn't in the case study section. She wrote a scholarly article, and it described her work as an in-house lawyer and the way in which she'd taken empathy research and redesigned lots of processes and forms, and the impact of that in the organization. In many respects, I think in-house lawyers are the great hope of our legal design movement. They work in organizations where the other parts of that organization are more likely to have an awareness of design thinking and the benefits of design thinking. Lots of in-house lawyers want to change the perception of legal from being like kind of a cost center and a blockage to actually being a partner in the business goals of the organizations. I spoke a lot with Geoffrey Delcroix at Ubisoft, the great French computer games company, and he described that process. He described going in as the sort of legal design person in the in-house legal team, and really shifting perceptions of the other parts of the organization. And just finally, I think there is this perception of academia and scholarly work which is exclusionary and daunting, and it doesn't have to be that way. An awful lot of our work now is not hidden behind walls. It's published open access. You can find it on Google Scholar. The Legal Design Journal is completely free. It's completely open. And scholarly just means really that we pay a lot of attention to method, because we want the knowledge that we create to be robust and defensible knowledge. And we situate a lot of what we discuss in the existing literature, just because we want to be sure that we're saying something new and interesting and useful. So yeah, we tried to make it much more accessible, and really encourage people to have a look and to parse it. You don't have to read 10,000 words. Read the abstract, read the intro, read the conclusion, see if there's something that could be useful there for you.
I love how carefully you dance around your favorite article. It reminds me of when I tell my older child that she's my favorite first child, my younger daughter that she's my favorite second child, and then I go on without missing a beat telling my husband that he's my favorite first husband, and that doesn't usually go very well.
And Michael, I'm curious to know, when you introduce human-centered design to your law students or other faculty members who have probably been mostly exposed just to a very traditional method in the law faculty, I'm curious to know, what is the aha moment? What is it that usually shifts their perspective from thinking that design is about pictures or images or colors or icons or maybe marketing, to actually thinking this can help for lawyering, and it's not just good design, it's better lawyering? So can you tell us more about the reactions and maybe some, I don't know, secrets you have of what really works to change the mindset and to bring, those more ha-ha in the rooms?
Wow, okay.
We're changing hearts and minds here. How did you do it, Michael?
Good. Well, I've had the pleasure really just over the last 3 years of teaching a bit of legal design as part of the curriculum here at Lancaster, as part of a legal tech and innovation module. My kind of starting point, the hook that I use right at the start of the teaching sessions, is to say to students that law does not work. I have to finesse that a little bit and say that that the law.
What a great start! Law does not work. Welcome to the field.
Yeah, law mostly doesn't work for most people most of the time. And there's lots and lots of data on this. Most people even in wealthy Western countries, the US, the UK, Australia, most people who have a justiciable problem they've been sacked from work unfairly, or they're going through a divorce and want to vindicate their rights, or they've suffered medical negligence. Most of those people do not rely on law to solve their problems. And very few of those people access legal advice or legal services. So that's kind of my starting point, that there's so much that we can do better. And law students are not used to being told this. They're used to being told that, you know, whatever the question is, law is the answer to that question. So we start from there, and it gives us kind of the freedom to think openly and creatively. I use a lot of examples. So I show real world legal designer work. I show there are people in the field who are making a real success of this, and who are really impacting the, you know, the way that contracts are drafted, and the way that privacy notices are drafted, the way that employment contracts are designed. We really prompt them to use some different sorts of creative methods of thinking about law and doing lawyering. And just perhaps a couple of things at the end. Moments is when we get them to shift their perspective from the lawyer to the user or the client. And one of the ways we do that is we have a scenario we get them to work through in teams, where they have to think about what sorts of legal design methods they would use, etc. And the scenario is really based around the work of Erin Levine and the Hello Divorce company that she set up in California 7 or 8 years ago. And it really prompts them to think about why most people who are going through a divorce don't access legal services, including people who can afford to pay for professional services. They will pay for an accountant. They will pay for a plumber to come and fix their bathroom, but they won't pay for a lawyer. Why is that the case? And it really encourages people our students to think from a user perspective as to what the barriers are. And they're often around transparency. They're often around the way that law firms look, the way their websites look, real anxiety about if they start in this process, that will it inflame the process rather than help them to navigate it. So they come up with lots and lots of creative ways in which our example law firm can do things differently. So they're thinking really in a creative and entrepreneurial way, which is very, very different from most of the other courses. Most of the students who take the course really respond to that really positively.
You've done so much work through connecting legal education and your recent book on higher education. So when we embed human-centered design directly into the law school curriculum, which blows my mind, but is still an act of radical thinking, despite trending positively. And how does that redefine what quote unquote good lawyering looks like for the next generation? And honestly, where do you insert it? You know, I was teaching yesterday with my colleague product law, and we talked about, for example, contracts. We teach contracts in the United States by telling you what's going to be wrong with them, but we actually never teach you to draft them, which is, if you're going to have experience in the contract, it's going to be mostly drafting, hopefully not litigating, really. And then, of course, we never get it to the question that we're trying to answer: how do we do it in a way that people enjoy the experience, seek it out when they need it, make their commercial, personal lives better? So where are you inserting, and what does this sort of look like for the next generation? I'm curious, kind of what do you think?
Well, I think we've got a long way to go. There was an encyclopedia on legal education that came out last year, and there's one on legal design that should be published next year. And I wrote the legal education reports for them. So as part of that, I did just a very informal survey of the number of legal design courses or programs that were in law schools around the world. I think there's somewhere between 40 and 50, though it's probably an undercounting. I'm sure I could find some more. but they're generally standalone courses. They will generally be optional modules. They might be part of the clinic, part of the clinical learning offering of different law schools. And there is an argument. There was an article in the last volume of the Legal Design Journal, a really good article that argued that standalone courses are not the way forward. That we need design thinking to be pervasive across things like how you teach contracts, how you teach tort, how you teach all of our different topics. There is some progress on there. So we've got a session coming up at Connecting Legal Education. Someone from Birmingham in the UK is talking about how they're integrating design thinking in compulsory core modules from the first year. So we're moving in the right direction, but there's a long way to go. In terms of what it might look like, I think it's a really exciting vision as to what a law graduate who'd been through a design informed or design influenced law degree might be able to do. I think they would definitely have much more of an innovation mindset. I think they would be more entrepreneurial, and that's what law firms tell us in law schools. They want all the time. They say your law graduates are really nice and they're really great and they're really smart, but they don't understand how businesses work. They don't understand how to work with clients. I think they'd be more creative. They'd be better at problem solving. They would be more client-centered. I think it could, there's a lot of focus now on tech, and I think it would complement what our students learn about tech. And it isn't just about law schools preparing graduates to work in the legal industry. To me, it's about access to justice and being an informed citizen who's a defender of the rule of law and all those sorts of things. So it's a very exciting vision. We do have some way to go before we get there.
Yeah.
Trending positive though, right?
Yeah, still trending positive. Yeah.
And I think the book is a great guide as well. The ABA book, Visual Literacy for Lawyers, although it's mostly focused on the visual part, but I mean it's all about the empathy and being user-centered and all of that. So going back quickly to the practitioners, we have a lot of lawyers, contract managers, private practitioners, solo practitioners who are tuning in. What would be a piece of advice you would give them if they want to bring this into their practice? And what if they face resistance, which they probably will because it's new, it's different? What would you tell them to kind of overcome any skeptical reactions and get the quickest wins?
Yeah, I think I'd give two pieces of advice. One, arm yourself with the knowledge that design works for businesses and for organizations. Just a very simple tip: you can go and search for the Design Management Institute, and they have a wide range of resources on the website on the value of design. So lots of data that design produces positive results in organizations. And the other tip I'd give is start small and work within the values and goals and culture of your business and your organization. Don't parachute in quite an alien way of talking and working. And once you've kind of infiltrated the design ways of working as you frame them within the language and culture of your organization, when it has worked, then you can pull back the curtain and go, haha, we've been doing design thinking. But start small and adapt it to your particular culture. I think those would be the two tips.
And we are coming to the end. I love those takeaways, Michael. And thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey and insight. This has been a much longer conversation than we anticipated, and it could go on even longer. So clearly we have a lot to talk about, and none of the folks here loves to talk. So we really have few ideas to share, and that's why this has been such an extended conversation. We should probably do it again because I think there's more to unpack. And your work in bringing legal education, academic research, and real-world design is genuinely transforming our profession. So thank you so much. And thank you, Tessa, for co-hosting and planning this conversation and leading this conversation and helping make this book come true. I'm really proud of this, and I'm so excited that we've been able to collaborate on this podcast and on this book. So thank you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure, and many congratulations. It's a really fantastic piece of work, and I look forward to having an impact.
Oh, I love that you bring your own. I love it. We should start the trend. Bring your own book.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm loving it. And everyone who tuned in and been able to join us for this episode 6. We have a few more to come. Definitely grab your book. It's available on the ABA, Amazon, and everywhere that the book is available. Head also to visualiqforlawyers.com to download the free companion guide. It has so many resources. Even if you don't get the book, definitely get that so you can be inspired and start, tickling your imagination. What a law could be and what legal experiences could be and how we can actually serve folks who are consuming law every day. And thank you so much for joining. We'll see you absolutely next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for stopping by. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Notes to My Legal Self. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They are an act of courage. Remember, the future of law is bright. Enjoy your in-house practice. It's an adventure of a lifetime. See you soon.